Hello everyone, Stephanie here from Mommy with a Hobby, and today's video is a collab with Sarah from Paperlovely here on YouTube. Go visit her channel and subscribe to her channel. She has a lot of crafty inspiration using various card kits and swaps. In this collab, we thought to do two kits. One I have put together and one she has a kit that she's put together and we have swapped. In part one, I will be making the 10 cards using the supplies I picked out. After you watch this video, you can head over to Sarah's channel. It will be linked below in the description box. And she will be doing 10 cards featuring the kit that I made. And part two will feature another 10 cards using the kit Sarah put together. So after watching part one and part two here, make sure to go to Sarah's channel to see part one and two using the same kits. If you are coming from Sarah's channel, thank you so much for stopping by. And here in this channel, I do a lot of card kits. I've kind of had an obsession with card making lately, so my latest videos have been all about the card making process. But I will make Bible journaling and art journaling. So here I'm just showing you the stuff that I picked out. I had a wreath and a little metal plate, and just showing you those pieces and some wooden veneer keys. Here I'm showing you the paper pad that I used. It's the Carta Bella 6x6 paper pad, the welcome home paper pad, and I'm just showing you here the front and back papers, pattern paper that come in that pad. And I really love the whole like fixer-upper and farmhouse rustic feel, so I picked that because of that. And here I thought these were actually like dimensional stickers, and I did not read that they were actually brads, so I had to figure out a way to incorporate them after I've already purchased them. And then here I have a wooden fence. I did grab this die that was shown in the little small screen. It's a dimensional house, but I'll show you how I used it in my cards. Here is a 12 by 12 paper. It's not pattern paper, it's just regular paper. It's not really sturdy. And I picked this up because of all the nice sentiments that it had, like cozy, you are my home, and etc. So I didn't pick out any cardstock paper for Sarah because she had cardstock, and I thought that she would like to use whatever cardstock color she wanted. And I just have white and cardstock cardstock that I'm using. So for this first card, I have this square die that I am going to be using to make a window. And so I run that through my die cut machine 4 times to create the frame for my window. Now I'm grabbing the cardstock paper and I am putting it on I'm kind of scoring it on my paper trimmer here on that crease, using that to score these lines, like to make faux wood panels, if you will. And so I'm grabbing my distress ink and gathered twigs, and I'm just kind of using it to buff it in these like creases to create the illusion of wood. So that was taking forever because this cardstock soaks in the ink really bad, so it doesn't really move in. So I just grabbed the actual pad and started rubbing that against the paper. Once I got it to where I thought it looked like wood, I grabbed another white piece of paper, and the idea is to use the distressed ink squeeze lemonade and kind of buffer that in that white scrap piece of paper so that it looks like there's light coming from the window if you were looking from the outside in. And I grabbed this floral pattern paper from the pad and I draw like fake curtain shape. And so here you see me buffering that yellow squeezed lemonade to be in the background. And then those are the curtains that I cut out. So I've pieced everything together and glued everything together. And so now I'm going in with the stamp set and figuring out what sentiment I want to use, and I ended up going with Home Sweet Home. And so I grabbed my acrylic block and use VersaFine black ink, and I just go back in there, align it, and that is the beauty of photopolymer stamps, as you can see, and kind of line it up. And then I just go in with a black pen, fine detail pen, to kind of fix up what I didn't um, get a good impression with the stamping there. And then I use some foam to pop this window up from the card base. And that is card 1. So I will be giving away the stamp set that I used to make these cards, and the way to enter that will be in the description below, so check that out. This is card number 2, and what I did is I have this frame die, and all I do is I cut it out on the what do you call this, white shiplap pattern paper, and I run it through, and then I decided it needed like a background, so I went with the craft paper and I did the same thing. I did some faux wood paneling in the back, and then I stuck that on and rounded the edges of my pattern paper. Next I grabbed this stamp that looks like sample paints, and like you would on a wall. So I grabbed a couple of archival inks and in different colors, and I'm just going in and stamping that. So I have like a beige, a brownie, and a plum color, and a blue color, and I just thought those colors went well together. And then next I grabbed the thin sentiment that comes in those sentiment strips from the pattern paper, and now I'm ready to piece everything together. So this blue floral pattern paper, I stick it to my craft card base, and then the paint swatches, I went ahead and glued that down in the center. And then the sentiment strip, I cut it down to size 1 because I had to cover that smudge towards the bottom there that I created. So it says chippy paint, farmhouse, and all that stuff. So I thought it went well together. So next, I needed a black paper, so I just used this scrap, and I embossed Welcome Home using some white Gina K fine detail embossing powder, and I stuck it down towards the bottom there. So I thought it went well together. I really love this whole farmhouse vibes. So next card, I had already used I'm using a white card base and some shiplap white pattern paper, and then some of the wooden pattern paper to create kind of like a table. And I wanted to create a scene so it looks like this is inside like of a house. So I stamped these off camera because I felt that doing 10 cards is takes a lot of footage, so I wanted to make sure that this video was short enough to watch. So I stamped all these images. Some I stamped, I'm sorry, with some archival inks and some with distress inks. So I found that distress inks really stamp well with the Tim Holtz distress stamping paper. It soaks it in really well. So all I did is I pasted all those images that I stamped to kind of in arrangement like you would see in a house. And then there is a pattern paper that has all these nice little frames, and I put the frame gather and then congrats at the bottom using some framelits, some Tim Holtz framelits, congrats towards the bottom with some of the pattern paper. And thought that was really cool. I have such fun when I create little scenes like that. That's like my main thing. I love creating little scenes like that. So here is the next card. So I'm grabbing this striped black and white pattern paper, and I love doing this technique, the kind of laying things down cattywampus style. I don't know, I just think it adds a nice fun effect. And I've been doing that quite a bit lately in several of my cards, and I just really like it. I can't stay away from doing that. So I lay that down and I cut a piece of the paper from the big 12 by 12 sheet that had all those nice little square sentiments. And I thought these went well together because of the color combination. So home is wherever I am with you. And I thought these cards were really fun because you can give them to somebody that just bought a new house, um, who I don't know, like you enjoy being around them and you consider them your home because of their friendship or your relationship with them, and so on and so forth. So I thought these cards were really fun to make. So I did end up using the stamp that says love this, and I stamped that with some orange archival ink. And then I'm using some of the brads. I had to figure out a way to use them because I purchased them and I mistakenly thought that they were stickers. I'm sorry. And so I thought this was a clever way to use them the best way I could because these brads didn't kind of coordinate as far as style. They were not farm style, but as far as sentiment wise and the whole theme did go. So I put the little brad that had the world or the globe there because it's wherever home is wherever I am with you. So I thought it went well because no matter where you would move or where you would go, that is where your home is. So I thought that was really fun. So next card, this one was super, super fun for me. Like I said, I love creating scenes. So I make this look like the inside of a hallway in a house or something. So I grab this piece of pattern paper that has this almost wallpaper looking. It's like a nice yellow and it has like this nice little pattern going on. So I grab the wood from the fencing and I cut the pointy parts with scissors, and it was so easy. It wasn't hard at all to do. They come right off. And so I wanted them to look like wooden shelves. So I did run my distress ink and gathered twigs and ran the pad on there, and it made it look like, wood grain. So it looked really, really good. So here I'm just kind of figuring out where I want to have those shelves lay down so that way when I put my pieces, they all fit and it doesn't look weird. So I'm just gluing them down with some of this tacky glue. And then next I did stamp all these images again off camera just to save some time. And some of these things I pop up with some foam tape, and some I just tape straight to the card base. So here I have these pots and nice like leafy arrangements. And then I grab these like candlesticks. And some I stamped just brown or sepia color, and then another one I use antique linen to look a little less brown. And I cut another frame from the frame pattern paper that came in the pad, and I put down a candlestick, or not a candlestick, a candle holder. And then I'm trying to figure out if I need to put another frame, and I do. I end up going with a smaller, thinner frame to go next to this plant. And the sentiment, I like it. I don't think I have the card right next to me to read what the sentiment all says. So on the inside, I just put welcome home, and you can write congratulations on your home. Thank you for letting me stay in your home. Stuff like that. I just thought that was really neat. I love these type of cards. Okay, so this next card is super easy. So there wasn't a wreath stamp in this stamp set. So I made my own. I used the longest, fluffiest, or fullest leaf stamp that was in the set, and I just kind of start going in a circular motion. And to fill in the gaps, I used a distress marker in bundled sage and kind of filled in the white gaps. And then I used the wood um, flooring looking pattern paper and laid that down on my card front base, and then I did a rectangular strip, and it kind of made me think like a tablecloth, the white with the blue there. And so what I did with the wreath is I propped it up with some foam tape, and then I end up, there's a little strip on the pattern paper. There's little small strips that look really nice, and it comes with two. It says Home Sweet Home and then Farmhouse. Um, and so I went ahead and used the one that says Farmhouse, and then put a bunch of small squared foam tapes to come off. It says Farm Sweet Farm to come off the wreath here. Now you can probably come up with a better wreath than I did. I was just being quick, and it kind of looks uneven from the bottom, but I probably cut a little too much. But I it would work if I didn't cut it the way I did. But I was in a hurry. So this next card didn't come up to what I wanted to, but nonetheless, here we are. So I did the same technique I did on the first card, but with white cardstock. And I had the idea of making it look like the outside of a house. And so I thought that was too white for the house. And I thought this looked like shiplap, but I wanted it a little bit more wood looking. So I did the same technique. I ran a gray archival ink, and I just run it back and forth. And I think I overdid it because I thought it ended up too gray. And at this point, I had already invested the ink and the time and energy into the card. So I said, I'm just going to keep going. So I was hoping it would turn out at the end. Sometimes that happens where you're like, this is not looking good, and then you end up liking it. I don't think I ever got to that point with this card, but anyways. So I wanted to have a door, and so I ran that same square die that I did to make the window, and I made a window on the door and used one of the brads, a yellow brad, to be the doorknob on the door. And then I wanted to make a welcome mat, so I just grabbed a scrap of pattern paper, edged it out a little bit with some blue ink just to give it a pop of color off the gray that's already on the card base. And then with a really fine black pen, I did squiggly lines. I used the wooden fence here. I cut it down to 2 to be on the sides. And then I did add some Nouveau clear bluish translucent drops, and kind of to create the illusion of the window being glass. And then I grabbed the strip of sentiments that says barn door, shiplap wall, subway tile, chippy paint, and farmhouse sink. And I cut them down to put them on the front of the door. And then I grabbed this plant brad and stuck it to the front, so it looks like the front of a house. So I tried to achieve it as best as I could. So next card, I grabbed this pattern paper that looks like cement, and I used that same leafy stamp and stamped it in several colors. I used different distress oxides in the green family, and then some gathered twigs and antique linen, and several other browns, archival inks in browns, to create the different variety of colors of this plant. And then I used this wooden pattern paper and just kind of rounded off the edges of the bottom to make it look like a large rectangular plant pot, and then put the Home Sweet Home strip sentiment on there. And then with my Signal gel pen, I add some highlights just in a couple areas, not the whole thing, just some of the areas where I guess the sunlight would hit these plants, just to add a little bit of more interest. And then I grab one of the frames from the frame pattern paper and cut that out. I can't tell what it says. Home is not a place, it is a feeling. So that's what I ended up doing. I thought it was simple but very cute card, very farm like. I just love the whole feel. So next card, I end up doing the same technique, but this time I decided just to leave it as is. I did use that same distress gray marker and just filled in the lines to make it look like shiplap. And to adhere the wreath, because it's so bulky, I ended up using my collage mixed media, what is it, paint? Not, I'm sorry. It's the Distress Collage Medium Matte Gel Glue. And then, so this wreath comes with these like long leafy things. And so I just adhere them one corner to corner and laid them like that. And then this metal sign, I embossed Welcome Home. It was super easy to emboss. Just don't touch it right away. If you emboss on these little plates, because it is hot. It stays hot for quite a while. So this is the ribbon I picked out, and I used it to make a bow towards the bottom, and then I just added one of the flowers that fell off and put it in the center. So it looks like a wreath hung on a house, a hallway. So next card, and I believe this is the last card, I ended up die cutting the house die with craft and white cardstock paper, and I did it several times. And I wanted to use it in some way propped up, but I was not being very imaginative. I was at this point I was like, okay, I need to get this video done. So I only used the front of the houses, so I didn't have a dimensional house on this card. So I just grabbed some watercolor paper here and I scribbled some blue and some yellows on there, wet it. I really wasn't being too technical here. I just wanted that kind of really subtle sky background. So here I end up, I wanted to have those houses pop up, and the only way that I figured to do that was to create these little slits that would fold on the inside of the card. So I end up doing that, and then I stamped these hearts that come on the stamp set, and I cut them out. So now I put that aside and I'm working on the front of the card base here. And I again grabbed some watercolor paper and I scribbled some green, moss green color, and just kind of scribbled some water. I wasn't being too technical. And then I set that off to dry. Next, I grabbed these wooden key veneers and I ink them up with some clear embossing ink. And then I grabbed some golden embossing powder, and then I'm going to heat set them so that way they look like gold keys. So there I have them. Then I grabbed that watercolor paper that I scribbled some green, moss green, and lay that down to the front of my card base to cover up the fact that I had made those square cuts on the card. Next, I grabbed the ribbon that I picked out and run them through the keyhole. And I do that for all 3 keys. And I'm not being measure conscientious. I wanted them like to kind of be all different sizes. And then next I grabbed some tacky glue and I run that on the key and a little bit on the ribbon, so that way the ribbon's not flopping everywhere. And I adhere them to the card front here. And I wanted to add a sentiment, but because I didn't think this through, I was kind of creating as I went, so to speak. So I knew that since I had propped it up with some foam tape, I wasn't going to get a good impression. So I just, instead of taking the risk and ruining my hard work, I just decided to make a big bowl using that same ribbon that I used for the keys. So I just tie a bow and I end up using some tacky glue, but you can totally use a glue dot. I should have done that. I don't have any. I should have bought some, but I didn't. And so you'll see, because the glue wasn't set yet, it flopped off the card when I opened it. There it goes. And so this is how I popped up. I put welcome home on the inside, and I popped up the houses, and then on the brown one, to kind of stick out from the rest, I put the little hearts and put some white paper towards the bottom of the houses, so that way you can write a sentiment. I hope you enjoyed watching these 10 cards with the supplies that I came up with. Go on over to Sarah's channel to watch the 10 cards that she makes using the same supplies. And remember to come back and watch part 2 as I create 10 cards with her supplies. Bye-bye.